Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Gio, and today we're going to ask the question, what happened to PK Subban?
The truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Hey, I hope your day's been good, and this is my first hockey video in a few days, so I figured I'd make another one. And today's topic is going to be on PK Subban. And PK Subban was the defenseman that was drafted 43rd overall in 2007 by the Montreal Canadiens, and pretty much was a star defenseman and even won a few awards, but now completely is a disaster for the New Jersey Devils, the team he plays for right now. But other than that, let's start at the beginning. In 2007, PK Subban was selected by the Montreal Canadiens 43rd overall. And as time progressed, PK became more and more of a star defenseman and was even more known as the heart of Montreal to the fans. PK Subban's exuberant celebration and goals made fans love him, but PK had a flaw, and his biggest flaw was that he was a locker room cancer. Not a lot of fans knew this, but PK actually would usually make the rest of the team very upset, and it was affecting their play because of the way that they would see him as a teammate. And most of the teammates hated him, and it was affecting the way that they would play, and it was giving them a few losses. And as times progressed and they might have looked like a playoff team, some of their games suffered mostly because of PK's attitude towards things. And he would also get into fights with his own teammates during practices. Like in one practice camp and one training camp, he would get into a fight with Max Pacioretty, who plays for Vegas now, but he would get into a fight with Max Pacioretty, and then twice in a row after that get into a fight with Thomas Plekanec. And those are only 3 of the times he got into fights. There were several other times that I could mention, but I don't really want to. And many fans didn't even know this about him and didn't understand it about him, but the whole city of Montreal was shook to a core when PK Subban was traded out of Montreal and into Nashville. After the 2014-2015 season, recording 60 points as a defenseman, PK Subban had hit the peak, but little did he know, 2 years later he would be traded to the Nashville Predators, as the GM thought that it was a good idea to just simply pull the trigger at the time, because it seemed like the right time. On June 29, 2016, PK Subban was traded to the Nashville Predators in exchange for Shea Weber in a blockbuster deal that would eventually see Shea Weber being named the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, where he's been staying for the next 4 years. And PK loved Montreal when he was in Montreal. He was completely happy with playing for Montreal, and he never wanted to leave, to the point where he donated $11 million to the Montreal Children's Hospital. And I don't know if you guys know this, but hockey players make a lot less than normal football players and basketball players and baseball players. Like, for example, PK Subban only gets $9 million in his contract. So that was about 1 full season and a fifth of his contract that was given simply to charity because he loved the city that much. And when the Nashville Predators returned to Montreal, he was given a standing ovation as well as people chanting PK, and it brought him so much emotion that he started to break down in tears, remembering all the times he had played for Montreal with the 7 seasons he was there, and how much he loved playing for Montreal and the fans. And PK would go on to play some pretty decent seasons with the Predators, granted the fact that defensemen focus more on defense than scoring, so he wouldn't have as many points as normal people. And in the 4 years that Subban had played with the Nashville Predators, he would actually go on to lead them to a Stanley Cup final one time in 2017. However, they would lose to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that would be the closest that the Predators would ever get to a Stanley Cup so far. And PK Subban was respected by the fans, maybe not as much as Montreal, and he never really started anything in the locker room the way that he did in Montreal. And he seemed like he would stay there for a while, because he'd stay there for 4 seasons and been fairly decent. At least that's what we thought was going to happen. On June 22nd, 2019, the New Jersey Devils would make a big move trading for PK Subban, and the Devils were already starting to build their team, as they had acquired the first overall pick and gotten prospect Jack Hughes, as well as getting Nikita Gusev, who had been with the Golden Knights but decided to play for Russia, but due to the super team that the Devils had, he decided to move and become a player for the Devils. As well as that, they had also gotten a veteran in Wayne Simmons, who had played for Nashville and Philadelphia. He now resides in Buffalo because he was traded at the deadline, but at the time he was a veteran that was seen to add more to the team. And the biggest problem with the Devils during this season was their defense, starting with the fact that I'd like to transition to the next thing. The Devils' defense and how they completely fell off a cliff this season when they were expected to go all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals or at least make the playoffs, which now even with the 2014 playoff bracket, they still aren't making the playoffs because they were so bad. But on June 22nd, 2019, PK Subban was traded to the New Jersey Devils in exchange for Steven Santini, Jeremy Davies, both prospects, and 2 second-round picks in 2019 and 2020. And with all the assets being added, it seemed as if the Devils were going to make the playoffs and should finally be good, because they had been really, really bad for a while. And their home opener would be the first sign of their disaster. During the preseason, the Devils looked pretty great, and the home opener completely just shattered the way that the fans looked at them. On October 4th, 2019, the Devils faced off against the Winnipeg Jets, and for the first 2 periods, things were great. They had a 4-0 lead built up against the Jets, and they even had a magnificent goal that was considered maybe goal of the year, considering Blake Coleman, who now plays for the Lightning after he was traded, went on to score a one-handed goal, meaning that as he was falling, he was able to fling the puck and get it into the net. And however, the Winnipeg Jets were not done yet and had not given up, as the Winnipeg Jets managed to score 4 goals in the 3rd period to tie the game and send it to overtime. And in overtime, they would win in the shootout, meaning the Devils choked a 4-0 lead. Yeah, that reminds me of the Vegas Golden Knights right now. Yeah, it still hurts. And as the season progressed, PK kept on getting worse and worse. This season, he ended with 18 points in 68 games, which is nowhere close to the 60 points that he had in 2014. And people were wondering what had happened to PK. After being drafted by Montreal and being the heart of their city, PK went on to win a Norris Trophy for Defenseman of the Year in 2013 and had scored over 50 points in several seasons. So what happened to PK? This season, PK had completely crashed. The one-star defenseman became a huge cap waste, as they were paying $9 million for a mediocre defenseman that was getting less than 20 points this season, which is completely what the Devils had not hoped for, as the Devils, as a problem, had tried to use PK in a way that he was in Montreal when he was younger. But it seems as if age and attitude has started to catch up to him, as PK was more about the glitz and glamour versus the teammate and all for the team looks that some other players had had. To be honest, the best Devils defenseman at the time was Andy Green, who was their captain for some reason, even though he's older than Toast, who is now playing for the Islanders. And with that, there's my video for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, leaving me a comment. I'll read them because I read them every day. And if you're feeling really special, maybe hit that bell button. And as always, stay awesome, stay quarantined.